All right, listeners, welcome back to the Ball and Breakfast podcast. Wayne Pois with Patrick Miller here. Please, continue to follow us on social media. We're on Instagram, Twitter. Elon Musk just bought them out, so could be even more interesting now. But outside of that, we'll also be on Spotify. We're actually going to start uploading videos there as well as our audio. We're on Anchor. We're on Apple. We're everywhere. So find us on Instagram. Linktree is our link, and we really appreciate the support so far. Our last episode, we touched on the NFL draft in the past. We went over what we thought are the best and worst trades of all time. That video is available right now, so take a look. That was part one of this 3-part series, but the current and second part of this series, we're going to talk about this year's NFL draft. In 2022, looking at the first round, there's a couple of teams here with multiple picks, lots of different needs for each one of these teams, and kind of a peculiar year for this year's draft, and just kind of the talent available, and what we traditionally see in most drafts. But I guess with that, we're just going to open it up to a broad conversation about the first round and the teams involved. But Wayne, do you have any hot takes on this first round? Is there anything that you're excited about or just want to see in general?
Yeah, no, I mean, there's so many things I think we were talking about before. Like, this was such an interesting draft. Just like the amount of talent. It's a very talented and deep draft, except the quarterback position. It sounds like, there's no like Andrew Luck, Peyton Manning or anything like that, right? But, there's a lot of great defensive ends, great defensive linemen, some wideouts as well. Pretty deep draft in the wideout position, cornerback, just all around. There's like a lot of talent just everywhere, but except like a game-changing, franchise-changing quarterback. So, but yeah, there's just a lot of talent overall, I would say. And, just looking forward to like seeing all the different teams and kind of what they're looking for and how they've positioned themselves in the off season, I think, leading into the draft. But yeah, I think one of my things was like the Kansas City Chiefs, that they're going to be interesting with those two first rounders, in the 29 and 30th pick. Because I think, I was doing some mock drafts and seeing the other mock drafts, what was happening. It really sounds like they're going to get some playmakers to fill in holes for them, right? Wide out, I definitely think is one. They got JJ Smith-Schuster to kind of fill in a little bit of the Tyreek Hill. Harmon's probably going to get more targets there, but they certainly could use more weapons. So yeah, it'd be awesome. If I'm a Kansas City Chiefs fan, like have a Olave drop there. But even it's like if they want to have kind of a project, if you will, and just work with the potential of someone like what Patrick Mahomes was at quarterback. Christian Watson, could you imagine Andy Reid trying to figure out like how can I use this guy and how can I teach him and coach him to be like the best possible version of himself? Like literally probably the most upside type of wide receiver in the draft. I think, yeah, they could certainly nail it out of the ballpark there. And then, yeah, there's a lot of safeties there at the later half of the first round as well. The safety is Basker out of Penn State, and then Seen out of Georgia. So filling in that safety hole that the Honey Badger is going to be emptying out. So I like the way that the draft will be unfolding, I think, for the Chiefs there. And I think it's going to be scary. I think they're going to be a scary team next year. So, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a team that has to nail, their 2 end-of-round picks in the first round. When you get rid of Tyreek Hill, he's just a dynamic, playmaker, game changer. He's a hard person to just replace one for one. I think that, the package of those 2 picks, hopefully, shore up something on the defensive end. I've been hearing Andrew Booth Jr. from Clemson is a, nice lockdown corner would be nice for a team like the Chiefs who seemed to struggle in their secondary last year, seemed like pretty susceptible, some pretty big drives. The Bills, kind of exposed them in the playoffs. But outside of that, there are a lot of guys that I've seen kind of on their radar for that pick. One of the two. It feels like wide receiver is a definite, option there. I heard, Jahan Dotson might fall in that slot. I mean, a guy like Sky Moore could also, be an attractive pick. He seems to kind of model the same size and attributes of a Tyreek Hill. So maybe they're just trying to, find that new gadget player that can, do a lot of different things with the ball, outside of their, size and stature and stuff. But, it's definitely a team to monitor. I feel like, the Chiefs and Packers are in a similar situation, just, losing their top wideouts, but also having multiple picks at the end of the, first round or what have you. And kind of in that desperation situation where it's like, it's a crushing blow to the fan base when you're just really that good, the prior year. And it's like, you want to keep that momentum building. So you need to kind of nail, those first two picks.
Yeah, no, for sure. And yeah, you were mentioning the Packers and all. Losing Devontae Adams, it's like, okay, well, how do we keep Aaron Rodgers a little bit happy here? But yeah, there certainly is, a lot of talent over there at the back half. And there's definitely some rumors, I guess, for at least the Chiefs, not to go back to them, but yeah, the Chiefs could possibly move up too. They certainly have some draft capital to maybe do that. So maybe they do go after Jameson Williams or something like that, right? I know he's kind of coming off an injury, so maybe he comes within arm's reach, and they throw in like a third rounder or something like that in there and see if they can move up. So yeah, a lot of awesome possibilities there. But then with the Packers, I certainly see them, if they don't take a wideout, what do you think will happen? Oh my, like it'll be interesting what would unfold there if they don't take a wideout. But there would have to be a stud out there that's just like, oh yeah, that makes sense for them to take it. But yeah, there's gonna be probably a lot of Treylon Burks, I think, is what I'm hearing a lot of rumors on. So some of that's just like a lot of people think he's gonna make a Pro Bowl like out of his first year and all that. So I mean, probably could do that with Aaron Rodgers. So but yeah, we'll see what happens there and all. So but yeah, what is your take? You have any hot takes?
Hot takes overall, I'm really interested to see what the Jets are going to do with these, two top 10 picks. They got 1 at 4, 1 at 10. A team that is in the process of rebuilding with, second year quarterback Zach Wilson. Robert Saleh really has to start steering the ship in the right direction, just proving that they can start developing a culture, build some wins year over year. Definite holes across, the roster on both sides. So it's kind of like really whoever the best player available is, I think they'll just pounce on it. I think they'll want to keep that the number 4 slot pick. I just think there's a lot of different options there for them. And, once you start falling a little bit, toward the middle to, the back end of the top 10, it's kind of, there seems to be a lot of, duplicative type players, if that makes sense, like a lot of edge rushers, tackles, things like that, guys who are kind of interchangeable in where they could go in order. But I see them wanting to make that number 4 pick. And then I'm buying all the hype, all the rumors of them packaging up a series of their picks. It looks like they have multiple firsts, they have seconds, they have, I believe, a couple fourths too, and maybe a couple fifths. I see them packaging, maybe 3 of those picks to the San Francisco 49ers for Deebo Samuel. I just see it as it's time for them to start, spending money. It's time for them to start kind of going after it with, their franchise quarterback in place. And, it seems like they've gotten some pretty good offensive, line picks in the last, couple drafts. It's just, what else are you missing? You're missing like a key playmaker who can kind of be, a clubhouse leader too for that franchise. So, Deebo makes a lot of sense right there. And then on the flip side of that, for the 49ers, outside of their, maybe later round picks, they could go right after Drake London at number 10 there. Assuming Garrett Wilson doesn't go before then, or, whatever their liking is, it's like they can instantly, find that number 1 of theirs on their own that they can control a little bit longer, plus some capital. So
Yeah.
What do you think of the, maybe the number 4 pick and the 10 pick for the Jets? And did you have any thoughts on who might go there or how they might strategize with those picks?
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say, let's talk about Debo. Yeah, like I think I think they had his brother, one of his friends or something, like posted like, Debo wants 25 million or something like that. And Debo like liked it on Instagram and all that because that's real life, right? But no, yeah, it was pretty interesting that all unfolded, and I think I've heard a lot of talks about like, there's only so many teams that have the need, and then also the salary cap room and space, and then the draft capital to kind of make this all work, right? And the Jets really kind of fall into it, and it could definitely be a Jets move. And then you also kind of look at what the Niners are all about. It's like, yeah, it sucks that we lost Debo or whatever, but I think there's this whole thing about Kyle Shanahan, just like, he's a cocky SOB. Like he's like, I can throw in whoever and make it work. Doesn't matter. So, if Debo wants to go make 25 million or whatever, let him go make 25 million anywhere, and we'll go get somebody else. I think I've been hearing a lot like Traylon Burks probably kind of fits that body type. He's like 6'2", 220, like little stocky or whatever. So, maybe they do get someone like him to help replace him, and everybody apparently can fit into Kyle Shanahan's system. So, if he really believes that, then let that be. So, and let him make 25 million somewhere else. And yeah, we keep on seeing wide receiver salaries keep going up. So, a lot of other teams have been trading their top wide receivers. So it seems like the new trend. I think we talked about the last episode, how wide receivers now topped offensive tackle now, the left tackle as the second most salary cap eating position. So it makes sense, I think, for Debo to leave there. So yeah, maybe he does come to the Jets. But if the Jets stick with the picks there, like I mentioned, there's a lot of talents in this draft. I'd love to see. I think all the picks, all the mock drafts I've been seeing is Ahmad Gardner, Sauce. I mean, if he can play as well as as advertised, you're looking at another Darrelle Revis type, just somebody that you can put on his own island and covers half the field. So would love to see that, I think, in New York, and then that'll help out their defensive side, and maybe get a tackle or somebody to help them out on the Zach Wilson on the offensive side. So yeah, I see a lot of good things possibly for the New York Jets, but they always seem to be the New York Jets. So
I was gonna say, like, the Jets are gonna jet, and in a situation with Tyreek Hill just falling right out of their fingertips too, like going to the Dolphins in their division, it's like I just kind of see it as like they're gonna make some sort of bold move here. I feel like so I'm kind of holding my breath about them actually staying in their slots and making their picks. But I do agree with you. I think at number 4 they do take Ahmad Gardner. I just think based on his reputation, just the scarcity of elite cornerbacks in the NFL and just how valuable they are to any team, really, even if you got a good one. I just think it's a very safe but high upside type pick that they can
totally.
go for.
Yeah, zero touchdowns given apparently in his entire college career. Like, that's unheard of. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, can't beat that.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, a lot worse picks that they could make. So yeah.
Yeah. Any other teams you think that just need to nail it here in the first round, or a team that's maybe not on the radar that wants to find its way in there?
Yeah, I mean, Houston Texans, they have a lot of holes, and with Lovie Smith as the head coach now, it'll be interesting to see what happens with them. But I know they have the third pick here, and then the 13th pick. I think for the third pick, I have them. With Lovie as their head coach, very defensive minded. I definitely think that they'll probably get an edge rusher, one of the top edge rushers up there. I don't think they'll go the tackle route. I think Tunsil's still there, at least for another year or two. So, keep him. They can always draft another tackle later on, but I think they're going to go with Thibodeau, actually. I think he'll slide down there. So I think he kind of fits that the style of what we saw with the Bears, right? You want a fast, athletic defensive lineman to help on the pass rush, do the cover two. So yeah, they attack, and I think I see when I look at Thibodeau's his game tape, he's just as explosive as anybody from the top defensive ends. So I see the Texans probably taking him, and then maybe a wide receiver or maybe they do spruce up the offensive line at the 13 spot. So, but again, they have a lot of holes, so I definitely see them. They have to just get the best available talent out there. But yeah, why not taking a high impactful player like a Thibodeau or one of the top defensive ends there? So yeah, I think that's who I see as they really need to nail this draft. And you can't just win with Davis Mills at quarterback. So yeah,
it feels like one of those years where if you're in their position, you're not going to win really any games. This following year, you got Davis Mills, who showed some sort of life. It's not like he completely wet the bed. It's something where maybe he has a little bit of potential, maybe just needs a little bit more team around him. But in this scenario, when you're kind of like, we just need everything, you can just go down the board and just take two of the best players on the board at that slot and not have to like overthink it or try for one position or have to like maybe overstep your bounds on a certain player in a certain slot. So I guess with that, I mean, when I'm looking just over the players and kind of their value overall and kind of what the Texans' needs are because they're so vast, I went with Derek Stingley at number 3. I think that just getting a lockdown corner in general, I feel like is so important. And it kind of felt like there were a lot of DNs, D tackles in this draft that are up in the, top 2 rounds where maybe the Texans can get another bite at the apple later. And I kind of went with at least at 13 with like a Charles Cross type where he can play multiple positions on the offensive line. It's, something where they can kind of slot him in where they see best fit. Now is O tackle as important as maybe an edge rusher? Maybe not, but I actually think I see Thibodeau going a little bit higher and, kind of looking down the line. It doesn't seem like there's another viable D-end going maybe past, in the 13 range where I think a lot of the great D-ends are going to get gobbled up early. And then it's going to be kind of like a guess who over at the position for the rest of the first round, at least.
Got it. Yeah. And yeah, no, I love Stingley and all that. I think what I recall again from the Bears, right, is that from their drafting is I don't think they valued cornerback as much. I think they had, was it Jennings, and they also had Tillman more so there. But they were like later rounders, or I think Jennings, we got him from the Colts, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, no, I agree. It would be nice to see, cornerbacks are definitely, if you get a shutdown corner in any draft or whatever, like that's gold. Like that's somebody that can cover half the field essentially, right? So, but yeah, if there's a defensive end though, I think for the Texans or pass rush, I think that's just how Lovie Smith's defense is built. It's just pass rush first, and then we can figure out, who's going to tackle who, or who's going to cover who, and if they're going to go with the cover 2 more so. In this modern day NFL. So, but
yeah. Plus you're making up for JJ Watt too. Say you go Thibodeau, you go Johnson, you go, if Hutchinson or Walker were to somehow fall, it's not a bad pick overall. It's just, number 3 is just so wide open. It'll be interesting to see what I don't know. Do you think they'll trade at all? Do you think they'll package any of these picks for more picks or something like that? Or
I mean, they could. If they do, I mean, they have a pretty good amount of picks. I don't know off the top of my head, but I think I remember just seeing a bunch of them. But yeah, if they are going to trade, I would think that they would trade down and just load up more so. Again, it's a pretty deep draft, and it seems like they're pretty happy or at least content for now with Davis Mills. They haven't really made any type of major trades or anything like that, and it's very rare that you draft a quarterback. I think it was a 2nd or 3rd rounder. And he shows up pretty well and all that. And then they draft somebody in the 1st round or something, unless they have like the first overall pick. But yeah, that just doesn't always happen. It doesn't seem to happen. So I think they're really trying to just build out around Davis Mills a little bit. And then, hey, maybe he does pan out, takes the next step in his career. They rebuild, draft somebody else in the next couple of drafts where, there's a little bit more draft a quarterback talent. So, but yeah, I just think if they are going to do anything in the draft in terms of trading, they're probably going to trade down more so. But, third and 13, I think those are pretty good positions to be in for, some game changers, I think, and to help fill some of their needs. So
definitely.
Yeah.
I think on the same topic, just at least for me, a team that needs to nail it, it's got to be the Panthers at number 6.
Nice.
Given the fact that they don't have a lot of draft capital in the second round or after, it seems like it's one of those picks where they're really standing out of that number and just, we could see a trade, but I think the thing that I'm actually seeing is I think Malik Willis is going to go number 6. There, I say that because, Matt Rule really gambled hard on Darnold last year. He didn't do anything this offseason. They have kind of been waffling on the Baker Mayfield decision. This guy came in ready to take on a quarterback that he could groom, that he could make, the next franchise cornerstone for the Panthers. And everything's kind of blown up in his face so far. He's been aggressive with his defense, building in the draft. I mean, I feel like now it's like, how many more years do you have left as a coach? I mean, this might also be on their GM as well, but it's like at some point, if things don't turn around, and I don't know how much more rope they have, but if I'm in that position, this is really reminding me of the 2017 Bears, just even last year's Bears having to trade up, get Justin Fields and really prove to the fan base and prove to, ownership that, hey, we're going to make the right pick, but we're also, we're all chips in at this point. So I just see it as a sense of urgency. I don't necessarily think that Malik Willis maybe should go number 6 overall. I mean, I just feel like the fit is there, and it's just one of those situations overall where, NFC South got a little bit weaker, going into this year. But it's almost like now or never for me. So I think that, you can't go, they need an offensive lineman, but are you going to spend that number 6 overall pick on a lineman when you have no quarterback? It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So I see Willis or a trade, but what do you think?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to lean on trade for that. I mean, when I see Malik Willis, I see him only succeeding if he fits into a team, maybe one of the later round type of teams that have, some decent talent all around them, but not necessarily elevating a franchise, if you will. So, at least that's what I think. So if he were to be, say, drafted by, the Steelers or some, team that was on the verge of the playoffs or made the playoffs, but maybe they have an aging quarterback where the quarterback is, kind of an afterthought now, they're just one quarterback away from taking it to the next level. I see him doing better on that in that route. But yeah, to your point with the whole Panthers, they have some holes definitely for sure. They have some talent. Defensively, they're pretty decent there. With I know they got Gilmore and all that. Who knows how many years he has left for his ceiling right now. But yeah, I think with Carolina, they have to trade back against a deep draft. If they can get a quarterback, maybe a Carson Strong, second or third rounds, I see that working out a lot better for Carolina, more so if they're able to fill out some of their other holes there. So that's what I would do. Who knows? Like you were mentioning, maybe Rule's oh, hey, we really need to draft a quarterback because I don't want to get fired or whatever, give me some time and, we can try to fill out the other holes in other ways. Right. So, but yeah, if I were the Carolina Panthers and I were actually to think of what is the best solution for us, it would just be, trade back. There's some teams with so much draft capital, maybe one of those teams just want to make a splash, grab one of the big talents out there, and you can certainly get something at 6 for that. Again, yeah, that's a great position. For maybe the defensive ends are not there. Maybe there's a nice tackle that they want to get to help out with their offensive line. So, I can definitely see them trading back with maybe the Ravens. Maybe the Ravens want to make a splash They have a lot of draft capital there. Or yeah, there's another team as well. So, but yeah, that's what I think. Hopefully the Panthers make the right decision and for themselves and for the fans to get take a step back, take it slow. Sam Darnold, he's bad, but is he that bad? We'll see. So
I mean, they gave up a lot of picks to bring him in, and he clearly disappointed again. I'm not to belabor the point. And like you were saying, I think the Packers, the Chiefs, with a couple of those picks, that could be a good opportunity for both of them if they need a big time wide receiver or something like that. I see that. I'd have to know how the general manager, what his current role, how fixed into that role has he been? Does Dave Tepper, trust in him? If there was another bad season, would it be just a head coach firing, or is this like a clear the deck kind of situation? Because if I'm Matt Rule, I'm standing on my, table and I'm saying, give me a quarterback because, I'm going to lose this year or whatever. And I don't, the future is the future, but I'm not going to be a part of it. So, but I agree with you. I think that if you're, if you're looking at 6, if you're staying at 6, is it a top end tackle maybe, and then work towards next year's quarterbacks, or like you're saying, when he's like just game breaking defensive ends to just wreak havoc on the other side of the ball in that division, like it's a possibility.
No, it'll be interesting what happens. I think that's Carolina's probably the most interesting in terms of it just makes sense for them to trade back. But if they do draft Malik Willis and it's like, hey, we're going all YOLO, we're just going to like completely put everything on him, that'll be interesting. But I just don't see that anyway. I think that Malik Willis has to have a good team around him in order for him to succeed, or a good system and all that. And I just don't see that in Carolina right now. So, we'll see what happens. But, if I'm a Carolina Panther fan, I'm like, trade back.
Well, sounds good. I guess staying on the quarterback topic, where do you see Kenny Pickett going? And do you see any other quarterbacks falling into the first round?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I thought, there's that whole thing with the Steelers, right? It's like, it makes sense for Kenny Pickett to go to the Steelers. They can't let another Pittsburgh quarterback, with that high grade, like, Dan Marino, like pass him by and all that. So, I know they have Trubisky, and it was very unfortunate what happened with Haskins and all. So maybe they do say like, hey, we have some needs here and there, but we like to pick it. We like the hometown hero. Have him learn from Trubisky a little bit, get a little bit of experience, but at the same time, like, I think if I'm Pittsburgh, before the draft, they made a lot of moves that were like, we don't need a quarterback. When they had Haskins, like I mentioned before, and Trubisky, I think they signed Trubisky to a 2-year contract. So, they're very much like, let's see how these guys go. I think they think that there's more talent. There was more talent in free agency than going through the draft. So that's where I'm like, I would maybe think that they aren't going that direction. But I would love to see, Pickett maybe, go to Pittsburgh and kind of have that hometown hero type of thing going on there. But might not be the best move, but who cares? I'm just picking these things here. So, but I think the Lions at the 32nd pick, I think they would take a quarterback. Who we'll see who's left there. Maybe Kenny Pickett is there. Or Matt Corral out of Mississippi. I think he could possibly be there as well. So I think at the 32nd pick you get that 5th-year option, so it's a lot more. It makes a lot more sense for a team like the Lions, who need that quarterback to take one then. So I think that would probably be it. But I think, like we mentioned, this is such a talented draft apart from quarterback that you have to be really desperate. It has to make absolute sense for it to work and all that. So, do you have any takes on who you think might also go in the first round?
Yeah, I'm gonna be right with you with the Steelers and Kenny Pickett.
Yeah.
I say that because this year has been really weird for quarterbacks, and it's even hard for me to put the Malik Willis to Panthers move together, because it's like usually if a team's excited about a quarterback, like they'll kind of make it known, or they'll have already traded up to like assert their position to get him, and it's like this year, it's like a lot of head scratching and like, the scouting reports sound good, but then there's just not that like general vibe that, this guy is a surefire first round pick. But I think in the Steelers situation, you lose Haskins, which was unfortunate. You bring in Trubisky for a 2-year deal, which sounds kind of like a prove it situation.
Mm-hmm.
But then in the same sense, not only do you need the depth, but it's like you're also a pretty competitive team. I mean, they went to the playoffs last year. I really like their defense. We've talked about their playmakers in the backfield at the wideout position. It's like they've got a lot of really great stuff in place. So you just want to make sure that, you've got that quarterback position protected and, something to kind of look forward to, something to build toward. And I think that at number 20, I don't even think they have to make a move. I think that because there isn't a lot of aggressiveness that I see from really any teams trying to make a push for a first round quarterback, it's like, I think that one's just going to fall into place at 20. And I think that's a good move for them. And then I also agree with you at 32. That's the only other slot that I really projected out as having like a quarterback fall to that position, because you look back at number 2, and I think there was a lot of speculation a couple of weeks ago about Malik Willis, jumping into that slot. But that seems to have subsided. So it's like I'm still under that impression that it's like they weren't head over heels in love with this guy, and maybe there's just enough other quarterbacks they know they like at 32 where it's going to be a nice fit. Not to mention if you can get Aiden Hutchinson or Trevon Walker to start your draft, then it's like that quarterback's just like a cherry on top for the first round. So I threw out Sam Howell as a guy that could also be a pushing for that number. I watched a handful of ACC football games out here in Virginia. But Sam Howell is putting up numbers and, kind of looks like he's game ready. So, a team like the Lions, they need the talent. I mean, reclamation projects are nice and all, but it's like a team like the Lions is just not a good place to fall if you're not, kind of game ready, or at least, somebody that's at least been proven to a certain extent in college.
Yeah, no, I agree. And yeah, I had been seeing Malik Willis like at second and all that, but I'm like I don't know anybody that's in love with Malik Willis. I've never heard anybody like, this is a can't miss prospect. He's gonna change your franchise or anything like that. I've seen some tape on him. Like, yeah, he looks good and all that. But I think he had like 12 interceptions at Liberty and all that this past season. I'm like, how did that happen? Can you explain this? It didn't like, change the world and all that. So it's like, yeah, really good, talented. Saw the combine and everything, like, yeah, like was tearing it. It felt like so, but again, like this is such a talented draft. Like, why would you do that? We did that whole draft bust episode last episode, right? And like we were talking about like, oh yeah, these teams traded up for this player, and they missed out on so much of this other talent that just like made sense leading up to it. And it's like that could certainly be the case. Would I like that to happen because it's the Lions? Yes, but it just doesn't make sense from that standpoint to like take Willis, say, over Evan Neal or any of the major pass rushers, right? Like there's so much talent out there, so why do that? So yeah, I agree. I think with that, and yeah, Howell, I have seen some tapes on him. I think, it has kind of a Baker Mayfield type of feel to him, but at the same time, he might actually have a better arm. So, he could definitely be something I see. He doesn't have to change too much on the blue color a little bit. So, I can definitely see him too. And I don't think Coral actually had a combine. I think Howell did. So, maybe they're like, oh, Howell, we actually liked what we saw and on tape and everything in the combine. So, let's take him at 32nd. But yeah, I can certainly see that too. So, yeah.
That sounds good. Any other untold stories or just things you'd like to see in this draft? I mean, if it's first round or after, just, things that were on your radar, coming up for Thursday.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it'll be interesting what happens with the Bears. I think for me, it's like, I've been going back and forth in terms of like, how who they want and how to strategize it and all that. Like, I think you got to take a wide receiver, in my opinion, first. They just have been positioning, it sounds like, or seems like, with everything in the offseason. Like, yeah, we're going to take a wide receiver first pick, or the second round, right? They haven't really like made any splashes or overpaid. I think that's been Paul's thing. Like, I'm not going to overpay for any of these players. There certainly was a lot of holes that he was trying to fill there with limited draft capital. So it made sense for him to go that route. So it's like, okay, I want Justin Fields to succeed, but I'm not going to reach, right? So, I definitely see potentially that they could trade back. Again, it's a deep draft. There's some talent in, third, fourth round. Maybe they want to load up a little bit there. They could possibly stay in the second round too, for a team that's really hungry for one of those players and for that 39th pick. So, but yeah, I'd love to see, maybe a Dotson goes there, or, Mr. Combine, Christian Watson. I've been kind of on the fence with Pickens, and just the injury history, I feel like, kind of just, it's like, he's only played how many games? Like, played them really well, but, obviously you got to be playing to succeed in the NFL. So, but maybe he's like the wide receiver Frank Gore in a way, just tears it up afterwards. So, but then, yeah, maybe some offensive linemen help. And then I think a corner. I think if I were them, I would go, wide receiver, corner, first two picks, and then offensive lineman. I think I saw some people like the guard position you can get in the third round. So that's what I probably would do. But yeah, I think that's one. Taylor Britt is my favorite player that I've seen in terms of tape. I even listened to his interviews. I love this guy. Like, he's gonna run. Yeah, I feel like he can run for president, and then also take your head off, on a screenplay too. So, he would be my, like, if the Bears picked him, I would be like, all right, this is a great draft. This is a great draft. Just a hard hitting cornerback, which I love. So, that's what I would love to see from the Bears moving forth and all that there. But yeah, who do you want the Bears to draft, or who are you eyeing for the Bears in their current draft?
Yeah, I'm on the side of, I just want the draft to come to them. I want them to seriously just make the sensible pick and just go with the highest value at the position possible. I know wide receiver, they definitely need a wide receiver. I mean, Darnell Mooney, Equinemius St. Brown, Byron Pringle, and David Moore. It doesn't really sound like an NFL receiving core, but it almost feels like they set up, a lot of, 1-year deals with everybody besides Mooney, just so they can clear the deck and get to next year. I think it's critical for Fields' growth and, to keep him off his back all year, just bring him into 23 healthy in a way.
Right.
But yeah, I like what Poles is doing. I just like how he goes about, targeting players. He, obviously was disappointed at the Bates, signing getting, matched by the Bills. He, had Ogunjobi kind of, Ogunjobi fell through just from injury after a physical or something like that. But it's just, he doesn't overreact. He doesn't, try to make up for that with, a wild signing for a similar type player that he doesn't really like or know. It's like he just takes it case by case and plays his cards, really finely. And he's got the time to do it because, we're still kind of in that rebuild phase, and this is his first year. So it seems like they're giving him that kind of leeway too, which is really nice, just from we'll get off your back. I am sure the fan base is pretty rabid, outside in Chicago and stuff, just to see us get to the playoffs next year or something. But, I'm just trying to be practical about this and say, we need a lot to make this whole thing turn around. So, just personally speaking, hopefully we find a receiver in the right slot at the right time. We're not jumping up, pick a guy that really doesn't belong in a certain spot in our draft. Mm-hmm. I'd love to see us just build in the trenches, get the offensive line help we need, replace some of the guys we've just lost on the defensive side of the ball in the front seven. Would just love to see us beef up there for the future. And that's pretty much it. I just want a very boring, practical approach because we've gone the gone in 60 seconds approach in the past few drafts, and it didn't sit well with me after digesting the trades and seeing what we lost and seeing where we're currently at with those moves. So the more boring, the better for me on this front, but we'll see.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good take. I think it's like I think Poles, right? He's kind of like the polar opposite of Pace, and I might have mentioned that before, but like Pace would just reach. Like he would be like, oh, jump from 3 to 2. Oh, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want, San Francisco? I want Trubisky, So like, whereas Poles, it's a lot more calculated. It's like, does this make sense? Like, well, we got a bunch of slots that we need to fill. So like, why would we, overpay for Christian Kirk or something like that, right? So I do like the more calculated approach. I like how he actually says what he means. He's like, yeah, I'm going to build through the draft. Okay. Then I know a lot of Bears fans were like, oh, why aren't we saying this person? Why aren't we saying that person? It's like, well, we're trying to build through the draft. Certainly got some holes and money and cap space. So like, if we're going to do that, we're going to try to sign players that make sense for our future to fill some holes. And then, they have, Roquan Smith, they're going to have to re-sign him. Jalen Johnson, they're going to have to re-sign him, just because they've earned it and all. So, them, Montgomery, we can always debate about whether running backs deserve money or not, but, they got families to feed too. So, there's a lot of, free agents that, that could be, that the Bears would probably want to sign and re-sign going forward. So have to keep that in mind, and then have to position the team for the long run. I think is that it's kind of the hard pill to swallow for the Bears, but you look at any great team in the NFL, they draft really well, and then they fill out the rest of the holes with free agent signings. So I think there's been a lot of things with like Justin Fields and his rookie contract, but they don't have the draft capital to really take advantage of it to trade or to, they don't have, I think they have a lot of salary cap, but they don't necessarily have, they have a lot of holes to fill with regards to that salary cap. So they got to be tactical there. So I think that Foles is doing the right thing. It's not sexy. I hope it works out. I hope that his drafting is solid overall, and doesn't take kids from small schools that have a lot of upside, but never really pan out. So we'll see what happens. But I'm excited. NFL draft day is always a fun time. So
for sure. Do you have any other final thoughts or last takes for this episode? Or
I mean, it's interesting. I think the NFL, right, is a very copycat league, right? So, we saw that a lot of teams were starting to reach, right, maybe several past years or previous years with regards to the quarterback position. Now it sounds like maybe it's just because it's this draft, right, where there's no clear-cut franchise-changing quarterback out there per se. I think a lot of teams are trying to adapt with that, with those salary cap. We saw a lot of we saw like Russell Wilson get traded. We saw like almost like any player basically just making demands and be like, hey, I want to get out of here. And the teams are like, okay, we'll do that. So, so it definitely seems like the NFL is going to more, I guess, player empowerment, and then the teams are willing to adapt. It's like, oh, you want Deebo Samuels, you want $25 million or whatever. It's like, oh, that sounds great. Good for you. Not here. We can't do that. So I mean, hey, if the players are great, fine with that, so be it. I think that's great for them. And then I think with quarterbacks now, it's interesting to see like, we're willing to trade some of our quarterbacks, free up that cap space that like the Russell Wilson contract would just eat up at you, and we'll build elsewhere. So it's pretty cool to see how teams are adjusting, but to Pole's point, if you can draft well and you have enough draft capital, you can do a lot for your team and take it to the next level and create a dynasty more so. That's what I think. Hopefully it pans out for the Bears, not so much the Lions, but it'll be interesting to watch and see what happens, I think, going forward. So yeah, but you do you have any other insights or anything that you want to share on your end for this episode?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of want to echo some of your sentiments on the quarterback position in general, just like the value of them and looking at them in the first round. It's, recent years, just looking at like Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, Jalen Hurts. It's like you kind of go down the line of guys that were, top 1-2 round picks, and just how much stock they put into that position. And, not to say that any of those three won't have magnificent careers. We don't know fully at this point, but, there just is a lot to say about, the gamble it is to go for a quarterback. And, I think some people probably looked at those three and, their size and stature and look at a Malik Willis and say, oh boy, who are you going to be? Are you going to be the next Michael Vick, or, are you going to fall into a similar fate where, you're a nice athletic quarterback, but in the same sense, we don't really know fully, how well you're equipped to lead a team, to, pass for a, good amount of yardage, make the right decisions when you're cocking back and firing. It's like, these are all things that kind of have to come into play too, because I think, the league is starting to adjust a little bit, even to a guy with, the talent of a Lamar Jackson. It's not his playground fully anymore. And he showed some vulnerability, throwing on target and, throwing picks and not necessarily, winning divisions or MVPs like, he had a couple of years back. So I'm just interested in general to see where these quarterbacks go for this year. Can teams actually sit back, just sit on their hands and say, no, we're not going to trade 2-3 picks to move up, a few slots to grab a quarterback. Could a Kenny Pickett actually fall to 20, this year? I would be surprised, but it's kind of feeling that way coming off the bat. So yeah, in general, would love to see, where all these picks kind of shake out. And I would just love to see like 3 or 4 blockbusters in the first round, toss out an AJ Brown to, the Packers or, the Chiefs or something. Hopefully it's the Chiefs, not the Packers. But, I just want to see some of these big name players, move into situations where they're, playing for new playoff contenders or getting paid because they put their bodies and their lives on the line when they go, onto the field. And some guys don't actually get their full money's worth, like a Le'Veon Bell when he was kind of, in his prime and had to kind of lose a year of, his upside, playing hardball at that time, which was like mind blowing. But, it's starting to move into that era. And, in general, I love to see movement, player movement. I want to see guys happy and, teams reshuffling a little bit. So, let's see what happens. But with the talent and kind of the position, I guess scarcity or just kind of the needs of these teams, I could see a lot of movement, coming in the first round.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And to echo on the Le'Veon Bell, it's like running backs, man. Like, I'm not seeing any running backs in the first round. Like, again, right? Like, it's so interesting how much that position has changed and has like been devalued, right? It's like it'll always be like first couple picks for your fantasy draft, but a couple of years from now you don't it's not the same people. Like they're irrelevant. So I do hope that maybe there's more with regards to the pay and all that for running backs, just because of like, yeah, it's usually once you hit 30 you're basically dead unless you're some sort of unique specimen like an Adrian Peterson, right? But yeah, I do hope that there's like some sort of restructuring or something like that, just because running backs, their life in the NFL is very, very short. Their bodies get banged up, and then they're out. And yeah, like good luck now on that second contract. Like teams are just not giving it to them anymore. So yeah, hopefully something happens. I think for that, we'd love to see maybe the NFLPA like actually do something with regards to that. But yeah, no, like echoing your points, it'll be interesting. I think what happens. And I really would love to see a blockbuster trade. But yeah, hopefully like not in a good way for the Packers. So
well, same here. I think that's a wrap for this episode covering, the NFL draft coming up on Thursday night. Be sure to tune in. Hopefully we'll be able to post that before, this episode before the draft comes. So if you have any, mock trades or picks in the first round or just things you want to see overall, feel free to drop us a comment wherever you're watching us. We love reviews. We love likes, subscriptions, really anything. We'll take it. But we'll be back pretty soon for the third part of this series where we'll actually just look back at what happened, this Thursday and kind of analyze where our picks were and, where we were right, where we were wrong, and then, the teams that we thought, won and lost the draft. So, with Wayne Pois and Patrick Miller signing off for the Ball and Breakfast podcast.
Take care, everyone.